Hi, this is the Drupal usability meeting for 2018 and December 4th. And we will at least talk about the new administration theme and design system proposal that was posted today. Christina, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm just opening everything. 1 second. I'm gonna share the screen. Super slow. Okay. So can you see?
Yes.
Cool, thanks. Okay, so I don't know how to explain that, where to start. Okay.
For the recording, can we read the issue number?
Okay. So this is the issue where we propose the new designs for the new admin theme, and the number of the issue is 3017785. It's on the ideas issue queue. So here the plan is, well, the ideas of this issue is to propose the designs to the community and gather feedback on them and see what people think about that, so we can move forward and start implementing it. So more or less the background is that we have the admin UI and JS modernization initiative. The idea here is to completely change the admin UI, but since it's going to take some time to actually change the UI with JavaScript, we first want to refresh the current UI with cloning the theme that we have right now, that is 7, but with new designs. And these new designs work together with the ones that we are going to do on the new JS administration UI, because we are working under the same umbrella that is a design system that we are creating for the whole UI. So for now, what we are showing is some basic concepts like typography, spacing, and colors that are going to be shared among the applications, and some components that are specific for this application, that is the new 7, or we currently can say that the name is going to be Claro, because the commit was already made. So in GitHub issue, not in Drupal core. So and also on this issue, apart from sharing some basic things and some components, we're also sharing several pages to let people know how these components are implemented. So I would say that, yeah, the target for that is to have an experimental theme in Drupal 8.8. And we're mainly refreshing the basic principles that we already had on the 7th theme, but changing some things to play together with the Drupal's values and principles, and to update them to new things like animation and this kind of things. Also, it's important to say that we are taking care of having accessibility review, and it's not fully accessible because it's still being reviewed. So it's a work in progress, and we are going to have as many reviews as we can for each component and the whole system itself. So if we talk about typography, we are basing our the system on a modular scale. That means that each jump from one side to another, it's based on a modular scale. So it jumps from 16 pixels to 18, and everything on the UI has to follow these rules. Another important thing, actually, I think on a typography level right now is the most important one for now, is that we are getting rid of fonts, and we are we are going to use the system fonts instead of, for example, using Roboto or Open Sans or Lucida as it was used for 7, because mainly it's going to give to the final user an appearance more in consonance with the rest of the operating system that he or she might have. And also it's in a matter of performance, it's going to be better, and we don't have to distribute any font on our on Drupal itself. So colors, those are the 4 main colors. Mainly what has happened here is that we are more or less using the same colors, the same number of colors and the same colors. So we have the white and a dark gray, a really light gray for backgrounds, for example, and the blue is the primary one. But what we are doing is to actually have this sense of change, to actually distinguish this system to the other ones. We are making everything more bluish. We could say more cold. We could say a colder palette. The idea here is using a more vivid or light color, and in general to have a lighter user interface, where only the most important things are the ones that actually are emphasized or that I lighten. If you go to iconography, for example, we've decided to go for icons that are the most simple version of each icon, and also are the field form. So we are not using outline icons like these ones, and we are going to the more simple version for each icon. And also we are defining several icons that are that work together with a modular scale. And also we want to give the user a sense of physical interface, or at least emulate that somehow, to make the user more comfortable and to make it easier to the user to understand the interface itself and what are the elements which are the most important ones. So we are trying to emulate physical qualities like depth, and we are using shadows for that. For the spaces, like margins or paddings or these kind of things, we are also based on the modular scale. And here we are actually using several sizes, and those are the ones that actually are going to decide how far one thing is from each other. And if we jump into components, here we can see the primary button and the secondary button. This might be easier to see that on Figma. So what I did there is mainly create like a screenshot with a basic specification, so people can actually get an idea of what the components are, but not all specifications are here. So we have a document on Figma where we can anyone can actually see what are the specific the spaces and sizes for everything. And mainly we have the default or normal button, the one that doesn't have any modifier, that needs to look like a button, like to make it clear that it can be clickable. And then we have the primary one. We are reusing the pattern that we have right now for 7. And then we implement the secondary button. We designed the secondary button, but it's not going to be implemented, at least for now, on this theme, because we don't have this pattern right now on 7. And for each of them, there are several sizes. And for drop downs, for example, we're trying to have the same look and feel, that it looks like a button. And where is it? Yeah, it's here. So we have the default drop down and the primary and the secondary for when we start using it, and also several sizes for each of them. And here is a quick specification if anybody wants to take screenshots or something like that. This one here is easier. Just to fill you in, here we have most of the basic elements like typography. Here it's explained a little bit the modular scale that we are using. For example, we have the spacing, layers, and all these things. And then we have other components with all its specifications, like input fields, text areas, selects, drop-downs. And we have several components here, and we still need to work on defining the other ones. But instead of going further with more components and then show everything to community, something that is already done, we prefer to show this MVP and then get feedback and continue the components after while we are getting some feedback. If we go to the form fields, mainly we are kind of removing visual elements like shadows and something like that. So coming here, we are mainly, so we have the default. The default implementation is with the label and the border, and then we have when it's hovered, when it's focused, and when it has some errors. And then we have the same for the text area when it's disabled, for example, when it has other elements like a select or a description, or maybe it have a counter here. It can happen. Then we have the select that, at least for now, it's going to be just CSS, changing how it looks like, because right now it's possible just in CSS. And in future implementations, we are going to try to also change the dropdown itself, but it's going to be in the future. Okay, selects, basic form controls. We have a lot of options. We actually tried to define all possible options that we thought we could even have. So I think it's going to be easier. Open this one. So we have, for example, we have the active when it's hover and it's checked, or the focus when it's unchecked and when it's checked, when it's disabled. We even have the error when it's empty, or even when it's full. So there has been a discussion if this is even necessary, but since some people said it could happen, that we just designed it, and just in case we have it here. Where else? After that, we have tables. It's going to be better if I just show the working document, because it's going to be, so you see we have a lot of components here working on them. Tables. So that will be mainly what we're doing. Basically, some changes are, for example, we are making the size of the typography bigger on the header, but we are removing the capitalization. So not all the fonts are capitalized. So it's better for people to read it on an accessibility term. Also, we are changing some, or where we are actually adding some icons to showcase when it can be ordered, and more or less we are kind of defining spaces and so on. For messages, we finally decided to go this way. Actually, the first option was really similar design on what we have right now, but we ended up with this one especially, and the most important reason is to actually have the same color on the messages, and we can actually have links with the color for links. We can actually have bold, and we can have more stuff, not only text here that is printed on red, green, or I don't remember, the brown, I think. But yeah. What else? Messages. Then we have tags or entity reference. What we have here is two phases. The first one is just styling what we have right now here. That is the ID and the title of the entity. And for future steps, we are planning to create a new component that is exactly the same that people have on Material UI, and it's called chips. So, for example, a chip can or cannot have the ID here, for example. It could be a bigger ID, or we could even use it for, I don't know, adding people or authors or something, relating actually other kind of entities that can have an image here. So for now, it's more an idea than actually an actual implementation, but it's more, so it could be more or less done easily. That's going much further, but at least those are ideas that showcase that we are not only designing for Claro or for 7, we are thinking a little bit further. Then we move the breadcrumb into the header instead of having it into the content region. So this way we have the where are we both with the title and the breadcrumb itself, where we come from. So it's kind of the same information that you need. It's together, and then we have it separated from the content itself. Then we restyled the admin list that it's used both, for example, on the configuration page or the structure page. So mainly we are using this component that is an arrow and a link. And we are planning that because we are using that because we think that we maybe use that also on another component that could be called action link. So it's taking you to another place. So it's kind of using the same styles that we are using on other places. So it looks like it's part of the same system. Then we have details and accordions. I'm just using opening images because it's going to be faster. If I have to search for each of them, it's going to take a while. So we are trying to use the same styles everywhere. For example, on the sidebar, or for example on the details, and it could happen that it doesn't. It's not open. It can be open, so it don't have the arrow. But we are trying to use the same styles for each one. Another implementation for that will be the toolbar, for example. Where is it? So we have, yeah, it's this one is a good one. So it uses the same style. So for example, we have the arrow, but in this case, the arrow is on the right. So it will be like a variation of this component. Another one, yeah. From here we jump into pages. The pages are all the different components grouped for showing how they work together. And here it's going to be easier if I just go to the page itself. So here we have the node edit form, where we redefine a little bit the admin, well, the toolbar. Here we have the tabs and the title and the breadcrumb. And then here we have the several fields like the title or the text area. And then we adapted the accordion here with the current elements that we have right now. Then here we can see the tabs on mobile. This actually has all this is how it will open. So if you click on manage display, it opens all the other options that you have. And it moves down. It's quite similar to what it's right now, just with different styles. And then you have all the other things below it. If we go to the content, we mainly have the same that we had, but just with the new styles. So we have the list here with the table. Then we have the pager that we didn't upload all the components into the issue, because otherwise it will have been super long and it doesn't make any sense. So the important thing is more the system, not each component itself, because it can actually be seen on the examples pages or just going into the Figma file that is linked into the issue. So we have this group of filters, the tabs, and the title. Then here we have the list, the navigation list, the structure page that showcases the navigation list. Here we will have a form. In this case, is the form for the blog layout, where we see how it will look. A table that has actually draggable things and some selects inside and several icons, and you actually see the second the other tabs. I don't remember the name right now. Another form is for configuring the blog, and then we mainly use the different elements that we we have seen. Here we can see the vertical tabs. For example, this one has disabled select. Here we have the configuration. It also has the navigation list, but it has the version where it's in two columns, and also it has a header, and also one of the errors or one of the messages to see how it will work and the spaces that we will need here. And then we have another form, another admin page. In this case, we have another draggable table with some drop downs and actually some text to see how the text work. A really simple form with a lot of text, some buttons, and some other elements here. And another simple form that we have on the admin UI. In this case, it's performance, cron and performance. And so more or less that's what I'm explaining on the issue about the pages. Then I explain here that we have Figma. It's a tool that we are creating. We used to create it, and here are the links to each of the pages. And then a quick explanation about which kind of feedback we want. I mean, I don't like for example, the circles. Don't use circles. I mean, it's not a reason. So ideally, we want feedback from people that actually want to sell Drupal and can say it doesn't work because the reason. So something like that. That's what the feedback we are expecting. I mean, it doesn't work. Okay, what it's not working for you there? What's missing there? Which kind of things? Probably most of the people is just going to say it doesn't work and it's not going to provide a solution for that, but that's fine. It's all work to solve it. And the most important one of the important things is that the feedback is time boxed. We are giving some more weeks after Christmas because, well, some more weeks, I think 1 or 2 weeks. So people have actually some time to review it, to give feedback, and we have time to actually implement all the feedback that we get, but we should actually have time to develop all these things. And if we go much farther on time, we won't be able to implement all these things. And it doesn't mean that from there we don't listen or we don't see this issue. It's just that we are not going to be iterating every time. It's just that probably it's going to take longer after that. And that's a super long explanation. Any questions or anything?
I'll go first. Everything looks awesome. You're covering like everything, and literally the only thing I'm running into are what I know as technical issues to Drupal. But for a design system, I think it just looks great. Like I see little hiccups you're going to run into. Like the little hiccup I know with messages is we have never styled the info message, which is you have warnings, errors, and like yellow, green, and red. We've never styled like a default message, which is actually, I was just looking at the APIs while we were talking. So if you don't specify that you want green, red, or yellow, it has no style now in 7. It like just hovers there. It's called an info. It's like an info message, which is like you're just giving them information.
I've seen that on other themes.
Yeah, I'll add that to the ticket because that's like a ridiculously minor thing you would catch. And technical implementation detail that I saw was just with the whole tagging thing, like that next generation. like the Drupal community just has to decide on what we're using for that technical component, which is like at this point somewhere between, there's a library called Select2 or Chosen. And we have to go with a third-party library and not implement it ourselves for accessibility. Like both of those, Select2 and Chosen, have great, like they're really working hard on accessibility to get that type of widget working. I don't know if I think they actually are as good as they support icons and crazy stuff with it. And
so you mean
that's separate of your design issue. Yeah. For that, to get that to work, like the community has to,
or the drop down?
both. It's like, how do you do advanced? It's tagging is kind of, when you're doing tagging, it's very similar to a multiple select menu, which looks really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Drupal, and like if we can pick a library, we'll get close. Like the library would solve the tagging issue and multiple select menus, which is slightly different than tagging.
Okay.
That's a technical thing. Like you have the right designs, and like someone can go in. I've seen people go into Select2 and Chosen and implement totally custom themes for it. So it could support, I would say 90% of what you have designed here will be able to, implementable. Even though that's not a word.
I guess the most important thing is that it's something that we design that can be implemented. We are just going to change the designs. I mean, the most important thing is being able to implement that. That's why we are proposing things on with different steps, because we assume that most of the things are going to need some discussion, or I don't know, something like that. So that's the reason.
I think you have the right approach, because the step of that second version of the tags is going to spin off into this discussion that's been going on for a few years, and we're just going to have to pick something. The only design thing that I have an issue with in D7 personally is local tasks, which just are buttons with a plus sign next to it. I don't know if you use a design.
You mean this?
No, add content. Scroll down to the content.
Yeah.
Where it's a button with a plus sign. And in this user experience on this page, if you're pulling it up, let's see if we can get one. It's add content. I think it's okay. Like if you look at it here, I just been always thrown off by it because it's basically a button with a plus sign. Mm-hmm. And it is the most important thing, one of the most important features on the page, which if you look at your design, I think it actually is succeeding in that. But it just, when you're going through it, I was like, if I was going to grumble about something in Drupal 7, like Drupal 8 and the 7 theme, is there are these, if you have like multiple ones, it starts getting a little weird.
You mean multiple primary buttons?
Yeah. Because you could have like add content, like a couple of different, I mean, in web forms, I have like add different types of elements, and you can definitely add more than one add button to that bar.
That's why we have the normal button and the primary one. Only one of them should be the main action, and the other should be the default button.
Yeah, I think it will work. I mean, now that we're talking about, I think if you have the secondary buttons, people can style those, and it'll work out.
Wait. We have default, primary, and then secondary. We had this discussion for a while. So mainly we have the default button. That is, if you don't give anything to it, it's going to just look like that. And then to actually have the primary button, the important one, that it can be a plus or it can be a share or whatever, then it's the blue one. Then we have the secondary button. Secondary button always means that there's a primary one. Mm-hmm. That's why it's secondary. And for example, on the what was that? For example, here, okay, we decided that this is the primary action, but then we have all these other buttons here that actually are you can't have a lot of blue buttons here, or even you can't have all the buttons with lines. because it just ends up like a page with a lot of lines. Here it's too much visual noise. So that's why we have the gray one.
Because that's on a lot of form. Yeah, it makes total sense. Yeah, I mean, I just see little technical details that people will just work out. You know, like funny, like when you have an icon in one of the buttons, and like Core just does not support icons because we're using.
But it is actually a before. I think here they're using a before to add something here.
Yeah, they're using the before, and you can't get a like PNG and SVG in there in Core.
Yeah,
This is not your problem, to be honest. Like someone else will have to, you know, when they're implementing it, people will start thinking about those things and hopefully work to resolve them.
Well,
like
luckily, most of the people that work on that are also front ends like me, so we more or less are thinking. Well, actually, and we actually have a lot of feedback from other people to actually how to implement some things and what doesn't make sense, and to not make crazy things.
Yeah, there's nothing crazy. It's just people, you know, some little things that people work out. So it's great. I just want to emphasize that.
It's actually been super valuable, super important to have Andrew coming and helping with the accessibility issues, because some of the things already had several accessibility feedbacks and we've changed several things already. And I guess we're going to do that with new feedback from the community.
Yeah, I saw it with the messages. I've been very aware of the accessibility issue with the current message system. With the background colors, it's very hard to read. Yeah, and that you've solved it because now people can put whatever they want in there without worrying about the background colors.
Yeah, like a llama picture or something like that.
Yeah. All right, that's the end of my feedback. I'll
Thank you.
Two things tapped out for me when I looked at the screen. So one is the operations drop-downs seem to have varying sizes. So these ones seem to be much smaller than on the text formats page example. There may be a relative effect. But the text format one relatively, or this one, seems to have much bigger buttons compared to the items.
It's possible that we confused, and because we have 3 sizes, and we just use a small one. So I don't remember. Yeah, we're using the medium one and the small and the super small here. So I remember this one being the other one, the medium one in the past, and we ended up changing because it really full this page and you really need smaller things here. Probably we just didn't went through this page again. Because, for example, we have the really small one here and the medium here. So you just got me. I'm not really sure if we went through that.
Yeah, it's always a question of like which one you give more prominence, I guess. Exactly. And also just the consistency of like you have these lists and some of them have bigger buttons and some have
smaller. I agree. In all tables we should have the same size.
Yeah. And there's one like maybe accidental problem with the password form that you have an issue.
Yeah.
Which is probably, I guess, accidental in a way, that the recommendations to make your password stronger is very subtly different from the actual fields. So it's not evident that that's not a text area in itself that you can type into.
Okay. Right.
But this only appears because you have, so I guess it's the combination of the 2 text fields and this box, that the box has some shadows.
I think maybe I think the problem here is it's not using the final styles for this area, because it shouldn't look like so close to that. But thank you, because I'm gonna review that, because we haven't placed together actually takes areas and details that close, and I'm afraid they look too close.
Yeah.
I know. Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway, I think here the problem is that this border shouldn't be here, or at least that prominent. But yeah, thank you. It's an important thing.
Yeah, otherwise I agree. It's a great job. Very thorough.
Amazing, yeah. I am just like blown away by the thoroughness and the attention to detail and covering all the aspects, and just like it's amazing. And this thing already had like, I don't know, 20 comments or something when I woke up, and I always like cringe and when I click on the link when it has 20 comments since I last woke up. But they're all like, holy crap, and like, yay, and like, so yeah, this is really good. And thanks too for the folks on this call giving some, you know, kind of cautionary info about where we'll run into challenges. It's good to flesh those out ahead of time. But yeah, just want to say well done and holy crap, and yeah, thank you for all the effort, because this is just phenomenal.
Thanks. Okay. Do you have any other question? Nope. Okay. So
I just one question.
okay. Sure.
You're asking for feedback just based on the design, is that right? And implementation hasn't started yet?
It has, but just with basic things like typography or like, I don't know, styling fields or something like that, to just start moving forward and to see what problems are we facing. So we had the discussion about SAS or CSS or this kind of thing. So we haven't started the full, well, we haven't started difficult implementations yet. But the place for that, it will be the GitHub repo that I'm just realizing that we don't have linked here. Oh.
But I think that's linked to from the initiative page, isn't it?
Yes, it should be there, but yeah, I'm gonna add that later.
And is there a public call for feedback somewhere? Is there a form to use? Just asking for comments on the issue, or what?
I don't know. I think we have issues and you can open an issue. I don't know. I haven't even thought on that. We have several issues right now that it's like start, I don't know, for example, with a page title or actually. So we have an issue for each, for most of the component right now. And then when we have any discussion or any kind of trouble, we just open an issue here. I don't know if you can actually give an example and I can maybe guess what could be better in that case. So do you have any specific question about implementation right now that you have in mind?
Oh, I was wondering if I want to create a sub-theme of the Claro theme and just change the color scheme to be more consistent with my site. How hard is that going to be?
You could actually see the code. I don't remember where is it. Wait. There was a pull request that it had it. I've seen that, but I don't remember where. The colors, for example. Yeah, I don't remember where they right now. But we are using variables for colors, and we are using post CSS to actually. So we are using CSS variables, and we are using a CSS to a post CSS to actually change that to old CSS for old browsers. So you should actually only change the variable that you want to change. So it will be like primary color or something like that.
Well, but the question at this point is, if I had a question like that, where would I ask it? And I guess if it's an implementation issue, it should be asked on the GitHub repo. And if it's a design question, it should be posted on the ideas issue we've been looking at.
Yeah.
And you're specifically asking for feedback on the design within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And that should go on the issues group.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
One thing, I think we should update the ticket with this discussion so people have your walkthrough of the design goals on the ticket. Because there's no video, right? There's no video walkthrough on the ticket. Am I missing that, or?
No.
Yeah, that was
So
part
we'll just
of
add
what
it as a comment.
here is because then we could take the recording of this and then shove it in the issue queue, and then for people who learn better by like video and stuff, that could help them.
They can sit there and go ooh and ah like we are.
Yeah. Viewing party, we could say it up. It'd be great.
Okay. Any more question related to that? Sorry.
That's awesome. Sorry.
Yeah, if you don't have more questions, I can try to explain a little bit what we've been doing on media. So maybe you can actually give some opinions about the first things that I have. I don't have much stuff designed, but where is it? Okay. So we're kind of trying to solve the problem I wasn't prepared to show that if it's not clear enough. So we're trying to come up with the best way to have the So we tried to find the best way to actually implement media and find designs for that, and we were trying to make the workflow easier and shorter. So we started saying that we were going to have like a drop zone when we only have, for example, images and something like that, to try to remove steps from the workflow. But some of the main problems that we faced is that we can't actually have inline forms, because when you drop in several files, then you have at least if it's an image, for example, you have the alt text for the image, and it has to be filled. And then there were several technical problems, so we decided that wherever we design here, it's going to be like something like Art Media or something like that, really close to what we have right now. And everything is going to happen in the model, even we are not happy with everything happening in the model, especially me, but it's a technical problem that we have. And then we have several things that we need to place here. One is the filters. If I make that bigger, maybe you understand what I'm showing. So one is the filters. The other is the switch between grid and a list. And then add new media. For adding new media, we were saying what do we need to solve? So we were trying to. So we decided that first we will try to come up with the simpler way to solve what we have right now. For example, we right now have the article content type. So we are going to try to have at least something the closer that we can to what we have right now. What it means is to not add that many clicks for the user is going to add only one image. So in that case, we were saying that if you are working only with images, it will be super useful to have a drop-down region. Ideally, the bigger the region is, the easier to use. And we tried several options, like placing only here the region to drag and drop things and placing it above. But the main goal for having a drag and drop region is that it's super easy for people to drag and drop, and you actually avoid some clicks, and you can drag and drop several fields at the same time, and it's easier. And you're always going to need an add media icon. So that's the more simple way, or the more specific situation that we are going to have, and that we want to solve it properly to not add more steps or not add too many steps to this. Then when we make it more difficult, then we have several, for example, we have several media types, then we have several, we are still not sure how to solve it, but some of the proposals were actually switching between tabs, but we weren't able about the vertical tabs or the horizontal ones. And the main problem that we have here is the space. We can actually have a wider model, but not a higher model, because not everybody is going to have a super big screen. And we need to take care of that. And those are mainly proposals. So we were still discussing it. But what are your thoughts about that? So I still don't have the design, for example, for the remote video where you actually have to paste a URL or something like that. I haven't got that far on the proposal for the designs, but those are some of the ideas that we were discussing. Thoughts?
Usually in Drupal, having tabs at the top of the page indicates that clicking on one of them is actually going to be a page reload, whereas using vertical tabs does not.
Yeah, but actually, I'm not really sure if I click here. No, you mean here, it reloads, yeah.
Yes.
But it's not going, as far as I understood, it's not going to reload anything. It's going to be all here, because if you're working without JavaScript, you should have all of the things in the form you're working on. So I think it's not you're not reloading the page unless you are actually adding media. Or, I don't know. I'm not really sure, I'm sorry.
And what would a page reload entail? If what sort of pending actions might I have? I might have chosen something from one of the filters. I might have checked off, selected some of the media on the page.
Yeah. Next step is filling fields. For example, you are choosing this image, and the next step will be something like if you want to change a caption, or you want to change the alt text or something like that. Or maybe you are picking a media type that actually needs some fields. Or if you are adding a new media, the next step will be a forum where you will actually at least have to fill the alt field. Was that the question?
I was actually thinking of things that I might do before clicking one of those tabs where it would make a difference whether it was a page reload or not. On the one hand, if it's not a page reload, then anything that I've checked off selected is going to be there but hidden. And if it is a page reload, then any of those things are then lost. And I guess both of those are somewhat problematic.
I don't know. I'm not the best person to talk about what's going to create a page reload right now. I'm not really that aware of the behavior here. Sorry.
Benji, I think we're going to lose the settings no matter, like, even if it's going to be an Ajax reload, like those checkboxes, if you check a box and do any of the other actions, you're going to lose those checkboxes unless someone writes JavaScript to remember the state of what's going on. We're getting into technical stuff. I think if someone selects an action like external videos, losing the checkboxes is fine. Or if they go to upload, add new media. They haven't completed the action that they began. So
yeah, I think we were discussing that, but I'm not sure if we actually get to a point. At least my opinion, I don't know what do you think, but my opinion is that if you change the tab, you're actually changing. I mean, you shouldn't be able to pick 3 images, 2 external video and 1 audio, unless they are on a tab that it's all of them are there.
Yeah, just to clarify, because I'm a little confused. So the image, external videos, and audio is the same thing as the dropdown that's in media type. Am I right, or am I like that's what I got confused about?
No, for example, audio probably is going to look like that, but with an icon for audio. But external videos probably are just going to be like a field where you can paste a URL, like a YouTube video. But that's an example of a media. I mean, there are medias, for what they were explaining me, there are completely different medias where you actually have a reference field, or another that you have 5 different fields. I don't know. So it depends on the type of media and how it's configured or something like that. I don't know if
that's the tricky. Even with image uploads, like I definitely will pull. I'll pull images from the web and enter a URL instead of drag and dropping a file from my local machine. So having those, yeah.
But then they are not local.
Yeah, it's add new media, but the drag. Okay, so add new media would open up that form where you could select local or enter a URL for any new media. The button add new media.
No, if you actually here, what I was thinking here is if you actually click here, you're going to open the browser for your local machine and find your image. So if you actually want to paste a URL, it would be another type of image that is external image or something like that, or Flickr image or something like that.
Yeah, I guess that's where I'm going with it. It's like we're at a phase, like I think it's 50-50 now, more and more, where people are pulling it from their local machine or pulling it from the web. Because I know if you're writing a blog post, it's half and half, because you're writing a blog, like let's say you're writing a blog post about something external, you might just pull images off of Wikipedia.
That's okay.
Which is supported, but I'm just saying, like, I'm wondering, is the UI should be browse files and then enter URL, or is it just we stick to both as possibilities? By the way, yeah.
Yes, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say the dragging images onto what the UI and clicking, triggering an upload absolutely is like people just assume that's how it works. It's that button, the add new media button. What is that? Should it be browse local files?
Okay, so you're saying that probably the copy there should be different. So
if it's browsing local files, it probably should. Yeah.
Well, okay, probably it needs a little bit more of wording, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
And then the question comes, what about external images? This is something we're not supporting in Drupal offhand, so it could be provided by a module.
And that's a different type of media. Yeah. That's not a local field. So we have two clearly different behaviors. One is the classic file that you have in your local machine, and then are all the other rest of external or media or whatever, infinite possibilities about adding new things that are external or whatever. So in that case, you're going to need a form. But for local fields, the pattern that is used in most of the places is more or less the same. So that's why we have here the image one, and we don't have like image and external image, and you can actually add here. So if you had, for example, the option in this case that you have actually external images, I would expect here images and another tab here that says external images. We also had the discussion about, should we actually add all these things in the same tab and have a all tab? And we don't have an answer for that. So I started designing from the easier one and then start to adding more things. So we don't have an answer. We should actually have a form with all the options.
I lean toward all because I think people that makes it only 2 steps. If you're doing all and you know the name of the asset you're looking for, you do all and you type the name and you get it. If you're looking for a video, you would have to go up, change to external videos, search, so it's 3 clicks.
Yeah, but if you're adding an external image and you also have external videos, you're going to paste the URL, you're going to say add. And after adding it, you're going to have to pick what kind of, if it's an external image or it's an external video. Then you have another click and then add, and then whatever it comes after that. So you're not actually getting rid of any click, but you're actually having a more complex interface, which I'm not saying that it's bad, but it's mainly the problem that you can end up with.
Could I ask a question, or would I be interrupting?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Looking at this, it seems to be a little bit confusing to me. I'm wondering why we wouldn't have horizontal tab for image, video, audio, so that, because we go from singular to plural to singular, and you could have an external image, you could have an external audio. So I'm wondering why it would be like image, video, audio, external media, and the would be would allow you to choose the type of media and put a URL in, versus each of the other types being the specific type of media that you're adding. It, to me, it would just seem to be more logically consistent.
Okay, just imagine that it says video and it says...
And that said external media. Oh, yeah.
So when you paste the link from YouTube, you have an external media. When you actually drag and drop an MPG or something like that, a local file or .move or something like that, that's a local file. So for drag and drop a file here, you actually can drag and drop, but you can't drag and drop a video. So either you have a drag and drop region, or you have a field to actually, for example, imagine that this is the URL, paste here your URL and then submit.
Okay, that's the detail I missed, is I didn't realize you couldn't drag any file type onto those boxes, that only images work with that special drag and drop.
Yeah. That's why exactly the having like Flickr, for example, or external images or Flickr or something like that, you actually need a different form for doing so. So you could actually have a form with both options, but I haven't gone that far on the design, but my concern is that it's going to be super full.
Yeah, I'm imagining a use case like someone has an Instagram account and you wanted to let them browse through the images on their Instagram account, or pick something new. Like I think that's what the Instagram module does, something like that. But if you had a tab for it, what it would look like.
I mean, that's got to be handled in contrib and not core. I mean, someone's got to figure that out.
No, yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. I was just talking about the pattern being consistent for essentially local files versus remote assets, and how you manage them.
Okay, for local files, we're on the same page. You have that button, browse files. It opens up the browse dialog, or you drag and drop. I really feel for external, it's as simple as you have a button that says add. I'm just giving ready. If we're going to go plain old JavaScript 101, you have a button that says add external, and it opens up the classic JavaScript prompt dialog, and you cut and paste your URL into that. And then you're pasting in a YouTube URL, and it parses it and gives you, it tells you if it's, a validation. Because that's external is all about getting that URL in. Pure, that's what core is going to support right now.
Right, but looking at image, the browse local files, we're not actually browsing local files. We were just browsing local images, because we're browsing everything but images, and we can drag and drop one type of asset, but all the others have to be browsed. I guess that's, looking at the interface, it looked confusing to me.
It looked like images, yeah.
Because it looked like it could only be images, but it used language of all files.
So you could actually have it. Just that I picked the tabs super quickly, and I didn't pick all the possibilities. I mean, of course, you can have videos and YouTube and files and whatever. So is the problem which are the options here, or the problem is more only this, having this tab different from the others?
Thomas, I see what you're saying. The context of the browse local files just makes it because it's in place next to images. It's in a grid of images. The assumption is that can only handle images.
Bingo.
Even though I don't think that's the case, to be honest, from the technical standpoint.
Right, I agree. It seemed like our messaging was off from the technical intent.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not totally
following. That would be to have add on its own tab.
Or a button. So Christina, to back up, the fact that the browse is it's in a grid of images, there's an assumption that you can only upload images. But that's really the best UX is anything you drag and drop at this moment, the port that you drag and drop into the UI, should just kick in.
Really? So that's a really good question, and that's a really a question we should talk about. I mean, if you're in the tab for only images, are you actually accepting audio fields also here?
Yeah, I would assume that the add field is limited here, where it would only accept the same type of thing. It's interesting because one of the stated benefits of a media field and why we're going through all of this pain is so that we can use different types interchangeably. So this is an interesting direction. So the team, I'm taking it the team direction to kind of segregate by type. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting though, because like one of the stated benefits of a media field is that you can put audio or video or YouTube or anything on it, and it just works.
So it depends. So I think it depends on what you are trying to use your media for, because this may be limited by the field that you are inserting into or using for.
My main thing is that to a user, I think an image is an image, and so the fact that this upload will only upload local files and I can't also reference, say, a Flickr image or something at a URL somewhere from the same interface, and it implies I'd be browsing those at two different interfaces. That's a little goofy to me. Like what I expected is that anywhere I can browse local files, I could also reference a URL. So we'd have image, video, audio, something like that.
So that you can actually do all the things on the same place?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you would cram that in there. So maybe that's the issue. But like when I'm thinking about, I'm making a blog post and I need to add an image to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would be intuitive for local image to be one tab and remote image to be another tab. Like I think what I would want to see is all of the images I've ever uploaded to my site, regardless of what source they had, in the same view, because I won't remember if that picture of a bear eating salmon from a river was one that I uploaded from my local computer or if it's one that I referenced from the internet somewhere.
But you're going to use it. I mean, you have to know if it's on your computer or you are actually copying and pasting a URL.
Sorry, I mean one I uploaded in the past. So like more for the browsing thing.
Okay.
Browse is showing me a list of images, but I'm assuming what I would want is images from any source, but that they're all images. But then I see how I can upload one from my local computer from this window, but I do not see how I can reference an external one. Does that make sense?
Totally. Okay.
Because the alternative is then we need two views of images, one from local source and one from remote source. And I don't think most content authors will even know, or definitely won't remember after a couple of blog posts where something ultimately came from. And then it becomes two different screens to search for something.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
And that's what I was trying to say. Angie said it much better.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point. Which I will share tomorrow.
The previous view is that you just had exposed filters here. And so by default, it would just show you all of the media. And then if you wanted to make it by something else, you know. So by segregating it by type, though, you then have to make sure the type segregation makes sense to the end user. And I think most people are pretty, like, they can understand the difference between an image, a video, a file, and audio. That's pretty straightforward. But understanding the difference of a destination where something came from video, like a YouTube video versus a video, that would be very confusing, I think.
But you'd need...
You can have the YouTube tab and the video tab.
What's that? I'm sorry.
You can have the tab YouTube and the tab video. Video,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
So I think sorry.
I was going to back Angie up with like image, video, audio, and then someone in the filters can go and have drop downs that say YouTube source. You know, they can do whatever they want in those filters to make it possible to get to the YouTube videos. By default, yeah, just those three.
But I think why there's stunned silence over there is because I'm imagining that this was a a design decision taken because of a technical limitation in the media system,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So she's cringing because the rest of the team is not going to want to hear this feedback. Because
Yeah. Probably.
Also,
but I can't remember what the deal is with that. Like I don't remember why. Do you remember why they want it segregated like that?
No. No, because there were several reasons. One was trying to avoid them picking the media type before, and then we tried to kind of discover that later. I mean, there were several reasons why we came up with this, and we never thought on the all tab. Actually, it came up, and someone said no because I don't remember why, and we said okay, we all agree. Just remove another thing from the
Sorry.
Okay, no, that's cool. I mean, if we don't solve that, it's a problem that we're going to have in the future. So good to know that now.
And nice to solve it while it's still in Figma, and as opposed to like
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
if you add different sources into a single tab for image, then you'd have to have metadata on each image indicating its source. So like if
I don't think like, do people care like where something came from?
well,
Like I've got a ton of book albums, and I don't remember if I uploaded them from my computer or if I referenced external media or how they got there. I just know I have a bunch of image galleries in my Facebook profile.
I guess I'm thinking of it from a support perspective of Facebook goes down and I was using Facebook for images. And suddenly I see all the images in my media, but 1/3 of all my images are vanishing when someone looks at my page, and I'm not able to discern what the pattern is. There's no indicator.
But that's the admin UI's quite like in the admin UI, absolutely. You need as many filter, like we need to add whatever filters to distinguish, but in the select media or browsing, people just, it's an image, not whether it's from Facebook or wherever.
We're not, I assume we're not keeping local copies of remote assets. So in that media, I'm adding something and suddenly my connection to that external source is down, but temporarily, how do we represent that as information in this media browser? Do the images still show up because they're cached? Do the images vanish and a message indicating why they vanished appear?
Okay, that's even one step further.
Yeah, that's something they'd have to sort out on, or we'd have, and we don't. You're right. If the image is missing, what happens? Not a 404, the broken image.
Sorry.
Yeah, so Sin, I don't know how to pronounce that. He made actually a comparative with Graph CMS, Media, WordPress, and Squarespace, and I don't remember which other. So we had several screenshots like the one that Gabor is sharing.
Yeah, I sent in the comparison for WordPress. So they have this one screen. Yeah, that one that you just have there. One up. So they have an add button, and then they have a drop button that says add via URL. Then you pick that, and then you get a URL. Otherwise, you get an add, and you have a whole tab and tabs for other types of things. I think in Drupal in general, the reason they are by media type, I mean, it's a filter. After all, it's just implemented as tabs, but it's a filter for all of them, or images or documents or videos, whatever, is that if you use media for your banner ads on the site and you use media for product images on your site, etc., and then you'd likely want to filter it down to your product images or to your stock photos or whatever, and ignore your banner ads for reusing in posts. And that makes it easy to do. But once you have like images sourced from Flickr, images sourced from locally, it probably doesn't make sense to distinguish so much. So yeah, It depends on whether we think it's an 80% use case to distinguish by this, and then allow for customization probably in some way.
Yeah, but that's definitely inside this 80%. Okay. Shouldn't this be finished like half an hour ago? I mean, it's from 9:30 to 10:30, no? The meeting?
Oh, I think you're right. I'm sorry. We got so engrossed in what you were saying. That
Yeah.
we lost track.
I didn't realize. Okay. So thank you for the feedback on the media. We are I'll try to make some coffee for everyone before mention that, but that's really good feedback. Thank you all. I don't know
Thank
if you
you.
want to say anything else. I have time anyway.
Yeah, great job on this one as well.
Yeah. Are there any other screens to show, or
No.
okay?
No.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we gave you a bit of feedback, so you can take that back to the team tomorrow. How is the sprint going so far? Just like 2 seconds on that, and then we can all drop.
Fine, I would say. I think there has been already some commit around that. They were saying we're going to show something to Gabor. I don't know what. Sorry, I can't make any spoiler here. So it looks like there are several things that have been unblocked, but I'm not really sure what else. I mean, One thing was the design, and the other was the widget for CKI editor, and I think that's moving forward also. And that's all I know. Okay,
great. Thank you so much, Christina. Really captured the stage today, but thank you for your time. That's awesome.
Thank you all for your feedback.
Okay. Everyone have an awesome day.
Great.
Yeah. For you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.